Of course, a huge library of Australian aviation legends is taken up with our fearless and courageous fighter pilots in wartime. Our next story seemed a very fitting one to present at this time, since so many of you in Victoria have suffered the loss of not being able to raucously cheer your footy legends on at live games during 2020. The Demons may not be your club, but an aviation legend intersects with this demon story. Robbie and Sam now meet up as fan and footy hero to take us back to the horrors of war to our north during World War II.
It's a grand old flag, it's a high-flying flag, it's the emblem for me and for you.
You might think that, being a legend of the skies, I consider myself an exponent of the high mark, soaring over my own teammates and the opposition to take a screamer in a grand final. Not so. I'd be lucky to get 2 feet off the ground playing footy, but in my Spitfire or Kitty Hawk, getting to 20,000 feet was no problem. Height was always my problem. Although I was almost 5 feet 8 inches tall, being a little chubby meant I wasn't a high flyer, football-wise.
Yeah, and height nearly got you scrubbed from flying training. Because you had the problem of not being able to judge height, particularly when landing.
I habitually landed 20 feet above the ground. Ironic, isn't it? My football career in jeopardy because I couldn't get high enough, and my flying career in jeopardy because I couldn't get low enough when landing.
But look, we'd have to say that your football career was reasonable. Although, you did only play 44 games for Melbourne.
Hey, I kicked 31 goals in those 44 games. And...
Oh, yeah, playing in 2 winning grand finals, 39 and 40.
It's a grand old flag, it's a high-flying flag.
The emblem of the team we love, the team of the red and the blue. Every
39 and 40. You know, the good irony is that my football career was saved because I was a fighter pilot, and my flying career was saved because I was a football star.
Really?
You see, after trying the patience of my flying instructors, I was finally allowed to fly solo. Then, I was shipped over to Canada for further training on aircraft faster than the old Tiger Moth. Then, off to jolly old England for even more training. Finally, I was introduced to the Spitfire.
Said by many to be the finest aircraft ever to fly.
Oh, and fly it did. And fly it, I did. She had a Rolls-Royce engine delivering over 1,000 horsepower. 1,000 horsepower. Not much bigger than the old Tiger with 130 horsepower, but with your Rolls-Royce engine. 1,000 horsepower. In February 1941, I became a commissioned officer. Me, an officer. Airmen were saluting me instead of me saluting officers.
Wow.
Ah, how I loved my Spitfire. And she certainly did Spitfire. Enough for me to shoot down 6 German aircraft.
They gave him a DFC for that. That's a Distinguished Flying Cross.
Yeah, they did. A DFC medal, no less.
So do you remember it all, Bluey? Your first one.
Can I remember it? My first one. August 9, 1941. It was late morning, and our squadron, just one of 14 others, were flying over northern France when we were confronted by about 100 Messerschmitts. There were 180 of us, so it was a free-for-all. A real dogfight if ever there was one. Messerschmitts and Spitfires all over the sky, all trying to shoot each other down. You see tracer shells go past your cockpit, and you know they're mixed with real bullets. So you throw the Spit around to dodge them. Sometimes, the maneuvers are so vicious that you momentarily black out with the G-forces. One moment, you're in a vertical climb, followed by a vertical dive. Sometime in the heat of the battle, with aircraft milling all over the sky, we sometimes only have a few seconds to decide if the aircraft passing in front of us is friend or foe. Many a Spitfire was shot down by another Spitfire. Suddenly, there's a Hun right in front of me. I give him a 5-second burst from my 8.303 machine guns, and bits of his tail peeled off like paper, and down it went.
Hey, if you're ever up there in Canberra, you go to the Australian War Memorial, and you go to the aircraft hall, and you'll see a Spitfire.
Oi, not just any old Spitfire, but the actual Spitfire in which I shot down my first German aeroplane, a Messerschmitt 109. You'll see a Messerschmitt 109 there too.
Wow. And you soon became the commanding officer of a squadron and ended up shooting down 11 enemy aircraft. You even got a bar for that. That really means he got a second DFC. It's a little metal bar under the original DFC to indicate he's been awarded 2.
Yep.
Anyway, you came home on leave in May 1942 and played your last match for Melbourne.
I was unfit, slow, couldn't keep up with the play.
But the crowd still cheered!
I was soon posted up to New Guinea, this time flying Kitty Hawks, fighting the Japanese. We were sent to Milne Bay, on the eastern tip of New Guinea. And at Milne Bay, somehow out of a coconut plantation, they managed to create a sort of airfield. Well, the landing strip was strips of perforated metal bolted together and just laid over the ground. Oh God, it was hot. It was muddy. It seemed to rain every day. And malaria, that was rife.
Now, you'd been sent there to support the ground troops in what became known as the Battle of Milne Bay. And boy, was this different from your operations in England. After a day fighting the Germans over England or France, those lucky enough to survive enjoyed the comforts of the officers' mess or the local pub. Then they retired to their quarters, often in a country mansion near the airfield. The mansion would have been commandeered by the government. They had a proper bed, their own room, a bath with hot water, and meals were cooked and served for them.
That's about it. But that wasn't Milne Bay. At Milne Bay, we slept on stretchers in tents. Stretchers that literally floated on a sea of black, gooey mud. Only the wooden floors kept us from sinking into it. We slept in tents. We ate in tents. Our leisure time was intense. These so-called living quarters were only a mile from the airstrip, but the journey to there was almost an hour of lurching torture, with rain beating into the open trucks that transported us. And let's not talk about the mosquitoes, the spiders, the snakes, all co-tenants of our domain. Meanwhile, at the height of the battle, the Japanese troops were so close to the airfield that we were firing at them before we'd even retracted our undercarriage.
Oh, Bluey. But we've got to get back to that inability of yours, Bluey, to judge heights right. We've noted that inability to judge heights right a couple of times.
Yep. Couldn't get high enough for the mark. And low enough for landing. Alright. It was the 28th of March, 1943. I was flying the Kitty Hawk over the Exmouth Gulf area, over there in Western Australia. Together with another Kitty Hawk, we were to make a practice attack on a United States Navy Catalina twin-engine flying boat. Now the Cat, as we called them, was at about 1,000 feet when I attacked from behind. I peeled off and lost height, intending to make another pass from underneath. But the contact with the water broke off my propeller.
He bounced up to about 200 feet. Even a bit high for one of your normal landings.
But I'd lost too much speed, and the old Kitty Hawk stalled and went back in the water in a vertical dive.
That was it. The Germans couldn't get him. The Japanese couldn't get him. Even his own comrades didn't get him. But height eventually did. What an irony.
Look, I probably shouldn't blame it all on my height judgments. This was a dead calm day, when there's not a ripple on the water. It's like a mirror, reflecting the sky and clouds, so it's almost impossible to determine how high you really are, because there's just no visible horizon. Come on now, don't be too sad. Unlike some of my great colleagues who've disappeared off the face of the earth, there are several reminders of me that live on to this day. The best known is the
Bluey Truscott Medal, awarded each year to the best and fairest at the Melbourne Demons Footy Club. There's also a plaque in his honour in the Melbourne Football Club changing rooms at the MCG. After Bluey's death, a top-secret bomber airstrip was built in 1944, not far from where he was killed, and they named it the Bluey Truscott Strip. It was a forward bomber base which allowed heavily loaded bombers to attack Japanese positions in Indonesia.
So, in a strange sort of way, Bluey Truscott finally got the Japs.
It's a grand old flag, it's a high-flying flag. It's the emblem for me and for you.
I've mentioned before what an honour it is to be able to present our theatre work here in this wonderful Australian National Aviation Museum. It seems fitting now to introduce you to a mighty aeroplane, tireless restoration of which was really the starting point of this whole museum. You are about to meet the Beaufighter.
There's no bigger legend anywhere than that big guy up in the air. There is nothing can compare to that great Beaufighter.
Born in England in 1937, kilometres travelled, ranged from earth to heaven. World War II was his big call, and he worked right through to what's called the Cold War. There's no
bigger legend anywhere than that big guy up in the air. There is nothing can compare to that great Beaufighter. Twin-engine heavy fighter, crew of two, machine guns and cannon to bombard you. Double duty on the ground, he'd strafe you on sight. Radar equipment was deadly at night. There's no bigger legend anywhere than that big guy up in the air. There is nothing can compare to that great Beaufighter. And he loved to call past the Japanese, flying low to the ground just above the trees. He was also a star in Asia Southeast. The Australian Beaufighter was one scary beast. There's no bigger legend anywhere than that big guy up in the air. There is nothing can compare to that great Beaufighter. There's no bigger legend anywhere than that big guy up in the air. There is nothing can compare to that great Beaufighter.
Well, from that scary beast to the little de Havilland moth up above. Quite a few women flew planes rather like that moth up there. And lots likes to always salute our women pilots in every one of our series. Don't we, musos?
We salute our women pilots. They have made Australia proud. They risk their lives and the plane survives. They roam the skies with a grin in airplanes. Come what they still kept flying. Where the skies were grey or blue. Laura's Bonnie, Nancy Walton, our Chubby Miller, all love to fly in aeroplanes. All love to fly in aeroplanes.
And in salute of those women pilots, we're going to finish our special COVID-19 style lots restricted presentation with another great local Kingston story. A story of a 50s feisty feminist from Mordialloc. Neil Follett, a founding member of the tireless exhibit restorers at this museum, had written an article which caught my attention. It was about a Gertrude Mackenzie from Mordialloc. A headstone was needed for her grave. Lara, Marjorie and Kerry will now show you why this Kingston resident deserved a headstone and why I was determined to write about her.
So, remember, Georgie, you have lots of notes there to refer to as you show visitors through our legendary exhibits. Now, the Wirraway we've just seen, well, that, of course, was the legendary work of Sir Lawrence Wackett of Commonwealth Aircraft Corporation fame. And another great
Men,
man...
isn't it? We always think about men and aviation, don't we? We're up there too, you know. Why is it that we're always an afterthought? Oh, by the way, there's a couple of planes in here that women flew. Yes, there damn well are. And I should know. I flew one of them. Oh, you wouldn't believe the fight I had to get my flying license. Well, in fact, I didn't just get it, I topped the class. When they eventually let me join the flying school in Essendon. Who? Gertrude Mackenzie? Gertrude? That's a female, isn't it? Isn't it? As if they didn't know. Just another way of being dismissive and making us girls feel like alien intruders. But by golly, I had their measure. It might have been 1937, but no man was going to tell me that I couldn't follow my passion to pie. But then, just as things were really going well, my husband died. He was mayor of South Melbourne, you know. Naturally, that made me the mayoress. Not some twiddly title, thank you. I used to attend all of the proceedings that he looked after, and I became very familiar with local affairs and government procedures. But life twists and turns, and there I was suddenly, a young widow in 1946. So what did I do? I got on with things and continued with the passion that I'd always had for flying. Well, why not? Remember, I topped the class after they finally permitted me to join the flying school. Oh, you should have heard them after that. Can't be her. Not the woman. How could she know? She must have cheated. But you think that was tough? Try then securing your own hangar out here in the sticks. We're talking Moorabbin in the 1940s, you know. The blokes, they were at it again. Lots of them didn't want to work for me, you see. Chose to ignore the fact that I'd been flying at Essendon for years. I participated in flying exercises with the ACC in those early years. Oh, ACC, you ask? That's the Anti-Aircraft Corporation, very important in World War II.
It wasn't just...
And some of my other tasks contributing to our war effort were not at all relished by the males.
See what I mean? It wasn't just the fact that she was a woman, and had nothing to do with money either. I mean, would you have wanted to work for her? They still laugh about the time that a trainee pilot flipped him off on landing, and when told that the trainee was okay, old Gertie yells.
Her? What about my plane?
You get an idea when you know that she, being a good Mick, called her first two planes Faith and then Hope. But her frustrations were really starting to show by the time she named her third.
She had 3?
Yeah? Well, no, actually. In the end, she operated 8 in her Mackenzie flying school. 8 aeroplanes. Anyway, like I said, she was getting a bit peed off with those blokes and what she saw as their anti-women stuff. So all courtesies were gone, and she called that third plane
MOBA. My M-O-B-A. My own bloody aeroplane.
She was a character, all right, and very much a part of this whole Kingston area. In 1955, you could hear this around the Mordialloc Shire offices.
What?
A woman?
Running for council?
Well, you know what they say, you get a wife, it's trouble and strife.
Interfering in every single thing.
Who? Gertrude Mackenzie? Her up at the airport? No bloody way.
She's a tartar, all right.
Bosses all the blokes around.
Think she owns the place.
She's got 8 planes and runs her own school for training pilots.
Women pilots too, I mean to
Imagine the damage somebody like that could do on a council. Yes, just imagine. And imagine how tough that old girl must have been to take the lot of them on, win her place on council, and fight an even bigger battle to take her rotated turn as mayor. Woohoo! It was on for young and old. See, it was all about the rituals and things. You're supposed to hand over the mayoral chain and place it around the neck of the new mayor. Then there's this big rigmarole, and they hand over the keys to the drinkies cabinet. Rumour goes that they hid the keys to the drinkies cabinet. The funniest bit of it all was that she was a teetotaler, so the drinkies keys didn't even matter. But for Gertie, or Mac, that's what they often called her, it's got that "I'm the boss here" ring about it too. I reckon she liked being called Mac. Oh, and look, good on her. She was a real goer. And with that chain of office and drinkies cabinet business, well, it was the insult of it all that she wouldn't put up with. The insult that she reckoned they wouldn't give to any man.
Yes, it was insulting. And it was hard, and it was rude, and it was damaging to them. Word got out about how disgracefully I'd been treated by some of those Mordialloc men. And bless them, the Mordialloc City News, well, you'll know it now as the leader newspaper. Anyway, they came out in support of me twice. My God, I had some battles. But women deserve credit for their abilities and their intelligence and their drive. I owned my own land on Beach Road and on Warren Road. But I ran my flying school with 8 planes right here in Moorabbin. The only woman in the entire Commonwealth in the 50s with that record. A hell of a lot more success than some of those head-in-the-sands fellows around me. Do you know one of them once complained to me about the noise of the aircraft overhead here? Do you know what I said to him? We're talking the 1940s. I said, and you should be damn glad they're our planes and not the Japanese. That shut him up. Oh, excuse me.
You rest now, Gertie. Mac, you've made your mark. Mordialloc is proud of your achievements. The aircraft industry is proud of your achievements, and you've finally been given a headstone in the new Cheltenham Cemetery. Oh yes, this fighting force for women to achieve in the flying arena must have sensed that she'd go early. In truth, the incredible toll of battles she fought probably hastened her end, but she wouldn't give an inch, not even when she was told.
Cancer. Right. Let's leave it till next year. I've got a couple of months to go yet to finish my mayoral year at Mordialloc. Yes, next January.
Following Mac's cortege to the new Cheltenham Cemetery, down there in Reserve Road. Oh yes, Gertrude Mackenzie was a significant part of this Moorabbin airport. She left her mark on our successful development of women's involvement in Australian aviation industry. She was a female inspiration to many, especially in Mordialloc. There's a little park in Hick Street, just off Warren Road, and that's in memory of Gertrude Mackenzie, pioneer in aviation, Mordialloc councillor, and mayor of Mordialloc in 1959.
I did.
Go girls! Always remember that I did.
Gertrude Mackenzie was a female who lived down Warren Road, where there's a park and on a board her achievements are bestowed. A hangar at Moorabbin had neat grades on her list. She taught both genders how to fly. She was a 50s feminist. She was a proud Australian. Her name it will endure. For her passion and her vision, we will thank her evermore. She was a mayor of Mordialloc in the year of 59. The blokes gave her a rough time, but she said,
"This job is mine."
Gertie forged Claire's pathway for both boys and girls. Remember those girls flying round and round without their string of pearls. And she was a proud Australian, her name it will endure. For her passion and her vision, we will thank her evermore. Yes, Gertrude proved that up there girls were equal to the boys. If men could play with aircraft, she'd play with the same toys. She forged a world in Kingston, where equality was heard. She made sure residents understood the meaning of that word. She was a proud Australian, her name it will endure. For her passion and her vision, we will thank her evermore. She was a proud Australian, her name it will endure. For her passion and her vision, we will thank her evermore.
Explorers, adventurers, service people, lost in time, lost with their planes, lost over water, or downed in war. Lots not-for-profit theatre company makes it their pledge not to let their stories be lost. I'm Maggie Morrison, initiator, co-founder of Legends of the Skies, and you can find and follow us on Kingston's My Community Life website and also on our Facebook page, Legends of the Skies. We are grateful to the City of Kingston for appreciating and supporting the vision and work of Legends of the Skies Theatre. And we thank you for your interest in our Australian aviation legends. We look forward to you joining us for more Legends of the Skies stories at the Australian National Aviation Museum, Moorabbin, in 2021. So please join us in humming along to our signature sign-off tune. Now you've seen the Legends of the Skies.
Now you've seen the legends of the skies, and you've learned Oz history. We have told of men and women who flew planes expertly. Admiration of the nation, there is pride in all our eyes. Their tales should be remembered, they are legends of the skies. We have told of planes and pilots who have served Australia well. In wartime and in peacetime too, there are stories that we tell. Admiration of the nation, there is pride in all our eyes. Their tales should be remembered, they are legends of the skies. Their tales should be remembered, they are legends of the skies.